Welcome. My name is Guillaume. I'll be your host today. I'm a data engineer working for Banin in Barcelona. So this is me. So obviously, I really need the new professional picture. You can follow me on Twitter. I have a LinkedIn. You can send me an email if you have any questions or comment, and I'm going to be very happy to answer. All right. Hello, Drew.
Hey there. Thanks for letting me crash the party today. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, welcome. Do you want to start and present yourself for people who might not know you?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Hey everyone, my name's Drew. I'm one of the co-founders here at dbt Labs. I run our product team. It's the product managers and designers that are kind of working to build dbt core and cloud. And hopefully many of you have spoken with them about things that you think we could do better in the product or things you'd like to see try to address with dbt. If you want to chat with me, I'm getting more active on Twitter. I'm at Drew Banin. Contact information at the bottom as well.
So a bit of context for everyone. A lot of folks here maybe never heard of dbt, and it's going to be all new knowledge for most professionals attending. We have a few questions to ask you about how to integrate dbt within. So it will be basically helpful to hear from you, your perspective of why learning dbt will supercharge your data career. And please, everyone, if you have questions for Drew, please ask them in the Slack channel and he will probably answer them better. Yeah, so the goal basically is to share how folks can adopt dbt easily and provide a very general overview of the value it brings to a company. So the first question is, what's the future of analytics engineering and what do you think of the modern data stack in general right now?
It's a really great question. There is so much happening within the modern data stack. There's new companies and products and approaches, new terminology coming into existence every day, it feels like. Ultimately, I see this as all pointing back towards empowerment. It's about helping folks like very much on this call and in this community do more work with less effort. So apply leverage to their work. A lot of that is better tools that solve different problems. Some of that is like new approaches to solving problems that are, more collaborative in nature. And honestly, I think a lot about this concept of like purple people, if you've heard of it. It's you sort of have all the context of the business, but you have the sort of technical ability to realize it in a data. And then people that can bridge those worlds are really superheroes, I think, in modern organizations. I think the future is more of that.
Thank you. Do you have any tip or action item on how to bring dbt? Let's say you get started, what should be the first steps? Like, how do you make that happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the best answer to this question is focusing on the problems that you have. dbt is a really great solution to a lot of very common data warehousing, modeling, analytics challenges. But I think if you're able to pinpoint those specific problems and understand if it's about collaboration between teams or maintenance of code or a lack of code where there should be code, things like that, then you can kind of better understand who the right people are to sort of bring in to this conversation and maybe figure out how dbt can play a part in it. So I would really focus on the problems you want to solve, kind of the things you want to accomplish, and then kind of figure out what parts of that dbt might be able to help with.
Excellent. Maybe a bit more specific, but how can organization, companies better structure their data architecture to get the most out of dbt?
The shift to cloud data warehouses is a big one. I think that there's a lot of legacy databases out in the world that don't play quite as nicely with the ELT, the extract, load, transform paradigm. So if you're not using a sort of cloud data warehouse or something similar, I'd totally recommend that. And then beyond that, I think that it really is about where you are on this analytics journey. So if you're just starting out, I would try to keep things simple and make sure that you're able to sort of, if you're a one-person data team, you're able to effectively administrate, the data warehouse and the BI tools and the dbt processes. But if you have a 30-person data team, then maybe there's a place for more sophisticated tooling or automation. So I would just be really mindful of what stage you're at in this journey and maybe make plans for how that could evolve over time. But there's so many tools that do so many different things. And so much of it is just doing the right things at the right time and then sort of letting the complexity come to you when it's needed.
Thank you. What are the steps or any piece of advice that you will recommend for folks who basically just getting started, or things that you wish you knew when you started dbt or you started using dbt, even though you're basically co-founders?
I certainly don't know everything. One of the cool things about dbt is there's so many ways to extend it or customize it that there are things people are doing with dbt that are really fascinating that I probably don't know. That's an exciting thing for me. If you're brand new to the analytics engineering space in dbt, I would totally recommend taking some time and sort of reading a lot of the documentation or the blog posts at Hangout in the dbt Slack. This is a growing community of people that are really working in a new and different way. The thing I'd want to communicate is just that you're not alone in this journey. There are very many people who are either doing the same things as you at the same time or have just recently done them. And one of the things that I think is so cool about the community is everyone's very generous with their sort of time and experience and wisdom. So if you got questions, don't be afraid to ask them. You have really good ideas. It can be a cool opportunity to share those with people who are kind of maybe a couple steps before where you are in this journey. And then sort of all together, we can figure out the best way to keep evolving this practice over time.
Yeah, absolutely. I really want to emphasize that it's an amazing resource, especially if you're getting started or not. Lots of knowledgeable people, everybody actually answers your question. It's really great. So thank you for creating this community.
It's funny, like creating a community. So thank you for being a part of it. I'll also just say, like, more tactically, for anyone who is already using dbt, I would absolutely recommend starting with really standard and consistent practices around things like documenting your code, using pull requests in your sort of Git workflow, using tests, like definitely write tests that you can give to your future self. So if there are like shortcuts that you're sort of like, if you're cutting these corners and not doing these things today, it's going to be a lot harder to add them down the line. You're going to thank yourself if you like impose good standards up front and then just sort of like work within those standards. That's my concrete dbt recommendation.
Definitely good advice. Thank you. We have one last question. I think is the most important question of all. Why is dbt not capitalized?
It's a really good question. So the person who named dbt, his name's Chris. We used to work with him at a previous company. Name dbt came from a similar kind of tool that's used in data, specifically the Spark ecosystem, or really Scala, if you're familiar, called SBT, which is Scala build tool. And so we named dbt because it was a build tool for data. The sort of why is it lowercase question, at least in the very beginning, dbt was all in the command line. And so you're typing dbt run dbt test. And if that command name was capitalized, it would be hard to type that out so quickly. And so dbt is sort of in the heritage of commands like cat or grep or ls or things like that you might see if you used a command line before, where they're short and easy to type and don't require you to press the shift key.
Thank you for answering the questions. The question is, there's an issue in the dbt backlog about dbt should know more about metrics. Could you please elaborate on that? How about complex metrics, and where is the line between dbt and Looker?
Oh, I have so many opinions. I had a 30-minute talk. We could talk about all of them. I'm going to give you the very short answer, not answer, but like thought here. And what I will say is I'm going to talk a lot about this at Coalesce in December. So if you're not already registered for Coalesce, I highly recommend you do it, not just for my talk, but for all the amazing talks we have lined up. But we do keep score of the number of attendees for each speaker, and I'm in like 10th place. So if you all sign up for my talk, it will help me and my ego. I'm just kidding, but definitely come to Coalesce. I think the dbt should know about metrics. It seems like a lot of other people sort of agree. I'll drop the link to the issue in here. Ultimately, dbt does so much around modeling data, in tables and views in a warehouse. And I think we'll hear a little bit more about how that's useful in some of the talks that come later. But one of the things that dbt doesn't do is it doesn't help you with actually reporting on top of these tables yet. And so the idea of teaching dbt about metrics is sort of taking this really critical and often complicated business logic and trying to do the same thing that we're doing for data modeling, which is like version control it, document it, do real change management. So if your metric definitions change, that should go through a pull request workflow. And then ultimately be able to expose these metric definitions to different tools, like say business intelligence tools, so that everyone could have like a consistent definition of the metrics that are most important to this, and that you can manage how those things might change over time. So that's the goal behind the issue. dbt should know more about metrics. If you want to hear more than that and how exactly it's all going to work, you do have to come to my Coalesce talk in December. So I'll see you all there.
Thank you very much, Drew. We really appreciate you taking the time to come here and answer the questions. I think that was really valuable and gives us a glimpse of what you think about dbt and the ecosystem in general. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on. You're doing a great job